watched as complacency replaced discipline. We sat on the sidelines as clickbait replaced our history. And we kept silent as our skill sets and careers became automated, antiquated, routine, and forgotten. This is unacceptable. We're here to guide you towards putting down your number and reclaiming your given name. We're here to guide you towards your vision of freedom. The world has changed, and there's no more room for willful ignorance. So to those happy with being stuck, with being complacent, this podcast's not for you. But to those looking for more, follow us as we reclaim it all. For our children, for our grandchildren, and for future generations to come.
From somewhere deep undercover in the Pacific Northwest, this is the American Reveille Podcast, and here is your host, James Lane.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh, ladies and gentlemen, yes. Ooh, this is the 10th, yes, the 10th episode, brother, of the American Reveille Podcast. I am your host, James Lane, and this, if you are hearing this means I was somehow able to pull off over 200 pages. Yes, 200 pages of script writing in the last 2 weeks. I'm sure my fingers hurt. What the fuck am I talking about? My fingers do fucking hurt. Anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about you. Hey, you. How are you? You miss me? I missed you. Why aren't you answering my Anyway, when was the last time you had fun? Okay, guys, so I'm going to do you a massive favor before we actually get serious here. Guys, I did it. As Brittany would say, oops, I did it again. Just like that K-pop rabbit hole I went down a few episodes ago, I went down another rabbit hole and I somehow came across a music video while I was writing. So I'm going to let you know right now, I play music in the background while I write. I have a big-ass 32-inch monitor above my regular computer monitor, and it usually has music videos on it. So anyway, I came across Little Sister Nora, and the song's name was Fun. F-U-N, Fun. And I guess this had to do with the toilet paper shortage some people were experiencing, but this performance artist decided to make a music video, and I need to tell you guys all about it before my head explodes. So hold my beer. You're about to get a reenactment through descriptive speaking. So if you'd like, look up Little Sis Nora Fun on YouTube and follow the bouncing bee. So there you are, and you see a brick wall covered in graffiti with, of course, shameless self-promotion strewn across it. The new album Fun is apparently out, and that's what the wall says at least. Anyway, this is like a brick wall at a Florida gas station. Not New York red brick, but that nasty grayish white toilet Florida brick. And if you're from there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So there's a door, and oh, look, what do you know? It's a bathroom stall. So let's go inside while a woman's shitting, because that's not creepy. There's a catchy beat so far, so why not? And then, oh, fuck, you hear her explain as we find Nora on the toilet. Black leather pants with 90s wallet chain down between her legs. Red lace panties included. Don't worry, moms and dads. It's a music video on YouTube. There's no nudity, though still maybe not kid-friendly. Let's inspect this bathroom. Keeping in mind we entered through a single door like a detached nasty gas station bathroom in Florida. Basically, all of Florida, as soon as you cross the state line, it's like entering a nasty gas station bathroom in Florida. That's an Inception moment right there, or a butterfly effect thing. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is that Florida, it's the nasty gas station bathroom of the United States. There may be some out there that know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it's okay. I'm from there. And as most of you agree anyway. So let's look around the stall. It's somehow a giant stall with like stuff next to it on both sides. It's so big. It's like a Panera Bread bathroom. It's gigantic. And so even though it shouldn't be that big, I need to get off the size of this bathroom. It's huge. There's a Jimi Hendrix poster. Check. Kiss poster. Check. Wine glass. Check. Glory hole. Check. Okay. No toilet paper. Well, I guess that's familiar to some people. So cut to 3 shots of empty toilet paper rolls, whatever those cardboard tubes are called. Are they trying to tell us something? So we're apparently singing in the bathroom when Miss Nora decides to, maybe with some help from a scientist working for Elon Musk, lifts off, launches the toilet, shoots through the roof like a porcelain poop rocket anyway. Now we've channeled the powers of Mrs. Marvel taking a shit, and we are flying. Now, apparently in the city, 3 hip kids look up to the sky. My God. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No. It's a brunette taking a shit all the while she taunts us, asking us when was the last time we had fun passing through the skyscrapers. We decide that it would be a great idea to hold a press conference. What? Apparently about the worldwide toilet paper shortage, surrounded by 2 really weak-looking bodyguards. She happens to lecture this crowd about all kinds of things, including toilet paper, all the while still on a toilet. And I also want to say I happen to adore her paperclip necklace that I happen to notice. Heads are bobbing akin to a night at the Roxbury, and it's time to take off once again, and we cut to the evening news reporting that people are taking more drugs while jets chase the toilet princess across the landscape background until finally she arrives at what appears to be a launch pad again. I think Elon Musk had something to do with this. Anyway, in the background, there's jets killing helicopter. I mean, they're blowing up helicopters. This music video really has everything a 13-year-old boy could want to see at the same time. On one screen, I mean, it's pretty much just missing the nudity. My God, is that NASA monitoring her? No, that looks too expensive to be NASA. It has to be SpaceX. Elon Musk again. 3, 2, 1. Blast off, and we are up and away, higher and higher. Below the dripping porcelain and red panties, we see Earth escaping us as we go higher and higher into the blackness of space, Earth becoming like a marble behind us. We pass the red Tesla, and when we get to the International Space Station, she must have flipped a bitch and done some donuts, which Florida talk. So, for some reason, she finally seems a little chilly, and I'm kind of glad she can show us her vulnerable side as she apologizes for being a stripper, as she's sucked into a black hole. Holy shit, we're in the Bifrost, people. And what the fuck do I see? A few toilet paper rolls floating by. Could it be? Are we headed in the right direction? How is she steering this thing? This is mind-boggling. A combination of a toilet, a tuchus, and some TNT blasting, blowing, and booping us forward through this portal that all of a sudden becomes money. You're just going to have to watch it. I'm still trying to figure out how we're getting a radio signal to her Bluetooth headphone that seems to have an old 90s microphone glued to the side of it while we're traveling through another dimension. And oh yeah, she's still interrogating. And no, I'm not having fun, Nora, not at all. In fact, I think I may be having a seizure. So many rolls of toilet paper. Now, we must be heading in the right direction. Emboldened, we move forward, wallet chains, panties, and porcelain. We launch through what could only be described as a giant roll of paper towel tubes on Mars, maybe? Flying through the sky, ass paper in hand. All of a sudden, she and her crew rejoice as they fly around in what seems to be an intergalactic biker formation, and we've done it. We've saved the universe, guys. I can't begin to tell you the brain cells that I've wasted on this music video today. Anyway, the song's now in my playlist, and I thank Calliope for helping me with the story. So, we're going to talk more about selflessness and selfishness today. Selflessness and selfishness. Say that 10 times fast. Selflessness and selfishness. Selflessness and selfishness. Selfishness and selflessness. That's what we're talking about today, as well as the dichotomy between them. And it all eventually ties into the formula for happiness. It's my formula. It works for me, and maybe it will help you too. Anyway, it really is fucking gold. It really works. So you can take it or leave it. But I really think the best way to start this is to start this from the beginning. And really what I do mean by selfishness and selflessness and some of the drivers behind this concept. So I think it's important to cover a few things that I never really hear many other podcasters cover. There are exceptions, but I don't hear much about what it's like at the real shit bottom of things. I never hear too much about kids watching parents cry because they can't afford groceries. I never hear about parents on drugs or emotional abuse that causes people to never develop certain tools required to be successful. Now, people do talk about it, and I hear about it in other contexts, and some other people do speak about this. It's not everywhere, but I don't hear many things about family feuds either, or kids caught in the middle and fathers abandoning families, leaving them homeless. I mean, look, the reality is this. Most people happen to be a few paychecks away from that or less. And even worse, many of us, a majority of us, fall into at least one of those categories. And that's the real truth. Even worse, there are a lot more categories than what I listed. And this is the reality of the lower middle class. And below that, there is a below that, and there's no help coming. No one's coming to lead people out of this curse. And it's a repetitive cycle of never-ending disappointment, really cut up with snippets of maybe intense joy or intense misery. But I'm not saying somebody should come and save them. What I'm saying is that people need to understand that no one's coming and that they should have some sort of way to get educated on what they need to do to help themselves. And I think it's a lifelong roller coaster. People really work their asses off and talk about how one day things will be easier. But guess what, man? Wake up call. It never gets easier. It just gets more complicated, which it seems to kind of cut up the difficulty. Maybe if not this, then the absolutely mundane. But look, with this being the reality, when many people hear me or others talk about being humble or selfless, or even about starting businesses from scratch and all this other stuff about betterment and community, all the things I want the American Reveille to stand for. When people hear me talk about it, I mean, it sounds nice, but it also does sound ridiculous. It sounds impossible. And people get inspired by this shit. I get inspired by it. It sounds ridiculous and impossible until somebody does it. It motivates me really to do some good stuff for myself and others, but also it's hard. It's really, really, really hard. And that's reality. So when you hear about Bobby Sue's Rag to Riches story or Mikey Boy's selfless foundation that feeds the homeless because he was once homeless, most people get inspired, man. And like I said, I do too, but they don't understand the work that it takes to make that happen. So you have to realize that when you hear about people getting their come up, when you hear about people doing the grind towards whatever and finally doing good for themselves and for the world, they had to earn it. They had to make everything for themselves first to do things for others. If you're living in a studio apartment laid off right now, how the hell can you possibly become anything but a potato? How do you help people? And most people don't have an answer for that. But my answer is simple. Many people are going to fail and many people won't. And I would rather be playing the lottery than have a 100% chance of not changing anything. So I already talked about areas that I think are going to be opportunities on previous episodes. So I won't get into that too much. But what I was trying to get at is that some people dream of doing really awesome stuff for others, but in the real world, man, you have to climb the ladder of some sort of success first. Whether you build that ladder or it's somebody else's, like I've said in previous episodes, you have to get to a point where you can choose what to do great things for others because of that simple fact. If you can't afford toilet paper, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to save the rainforest unless you can write and talk your ass off and somehow get a social media movement going, but for the most part, you have to face the reality that broke or close to broke means you don't got time to worry about other people's problems and shit. That's just a fact, Jack. Don't virtue signal at me either. It's a fucking fact. So my advice to you is if you're in a crappy spot or were on the up and coming and now on hold because of the pandemic right now, while you're worried, you can't be stuck. You can't get frozen. You have to unfreeze your mind and get creative. Start making small movies. Get the resume freshened up. Take some courses. Write a blog. Write a book. Film your kids. Start a makeup TikTok channel. I don't know. Just don't sit on your ass waiting for someone or something to come to the rescue. Nobody's coming. So get creative, get a little selfish so that you can be selfless later. I'll explain more when the American Reveille Podcast with James Lane returns.
You're so fine, oh lady, let your body take control.
The American Reveille Podcast with James Lane would like to take a moment to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to tune into the show. It's because of great fans like you that we strive to deliver the best quality content one can create as fast as one can fling the pen. The American Reveille Podcast with James Lane would also like to remind you that the American Reveille Podcast with James Lane is, in fact, sponsored by James Lane. James Lane also writes, directs, records, edits, and produces this podcast. On top of that, James Lane also handles the daunting task of running the social media management, and did I mention, he also manages the webpage, email lists, creates and designs the artwork, and everything else you could think of. With that being said, a good little boy never misses his opportunity to sell himself, and though James would never ask you for your money, he would like to let you know that if you absolutely love this podcast, the writing, the art, its production, anything, please do us the personal favor of liking, sharing, tweeting, texting, and talking about this podcast. James Lane is a father, a husband, a U.S. Navy veteran, and is personally committed to the success of the American Reveille Podcast. For booking inquiries, potential sponsors, volunteers, internship inquiries, feedbacks, comments, or suggestions, please email James Lane directly at podcast@AmericanReveille.com, or please visit our website at www.AmericanReveille.com. Now, let's get back to the show.
All right, we are back. James Lane here. This is the American Reveille Podcast, and I think this may be the only podcast of its kind. I don't know. Let me know on social media. So, guys, we're talking about reality, talking about the bottom, talking about maybe I would call them noble causes. I can remember being really young and daydreaming possibly of being rich and famous, and I can remember wanting it for me, and it feels like only when I started wanting success and wealth and happiness for others, for the people around me, did I begin to find that success myself. And it was weird. It started coming in little bits, like in pieces, little spurts, and it's still coming as I'm in no way where I need to be to do what I want to do for my family and for others, but I'm getting there chomp by chomp, bit by bit. It's actually measurable, and it's only been measurable since I started taking others into consideration. So I've been in that place that feels like you can't escape from also. I've felt hopelessness before. I've been down at the bottom. I felt trapped with no hope for the future. And I'm telling you, when it happens, you change like a light switch went off. You just wake up one day and all of a sudden it's not so bad. When you wake up from that nightmare, when you learn to take control of your mindset and really do what you need to do, oh man, you build so much momentum. But that's what you need. You need to build momentum. Everybody has to start somewhere. And even if that's the bottom, start with one thing. The only thing you have control over, your mindset. Guys, I recognize this stuff can be difficult if you're just stepping up and you're just deciding to maybe become more involved in being a human being a valuable member of society. But I assure you, I understand. And here's the thing. You got to go out and you got to get self-made before you can make others, if that makes sense. You got to go be somebody before you can help somebody. You really have to be something special to do great stuff with no resources. I'm not saying it's impossible, and I'm not saying the little good things you do is worthless. I'm just going to say it's almost impossible to do really big things with nothing. It's pretty impossible. So it's not hard to do small things for people that are noble. But if you have big dreams that are much bigger than those small things, then you have to sometimes make big moves. So don't be afraid to sometimes be a little selfish and use your desires to drive you. Just remember to keep sight of why you're doing it and the long-term goals. Everybody wants this instant gratification. Everybody wants the instant mastery, and it's not real, guys. It doesn't exist. The answer is the work, the quality, the consistency of the work, and the consistency of the quality, the strategy behind it, how you adjust to it, and how do you adapt? How do you adapt to the environment that you're working in again and again until mastery and success are achieved? It's like beating a sword on an anvil again and again, like we've talked in previous episodes, pulling the sword off and into the water and only to see it shatter. And with only a second to mourn, you pick up another block and you beat it again and again until that sword breaks. And maybe one day that sword is good and the sword gleams in the sun and it's encrusted and it's gemmed and they gleam red and green and blue. And maybe people want these swords and maybe you find your success. It's a simple analogy. It's maybe a little silly to some, but it's important and empowering to me. It can be adapted with anything. You're possibly sitting at home right now just with an opportunity to do something new, something different, something great. You need to reflect. You need to ask yourself, what did I always want to do? What dream maybe did I give up on? What skill did I half-ass when I tried to acquire it? Or what skill do I need to acquire? Did I regret not spending enough time with my kids, my family? Do you regret anything? Do we need to rebuild those relationships? I say we should rebuild those relationships. We should reignite those fires. And I think you should think about these things. I learned how to do graphic design on YouTube. I learned how to mix audio on YouTube. I rebuilt my old truck's carburetor from a book 10 years ago. Why can't you learn about something and start doing it, even if it's for free, even if it's extremely difficult, even if you fail 10 times over? Why can't you keep trying? Find a way to do it a ton and make the most of your time while you have the time and show the world that it's of quality, or tweak it until it becomes of quality, whatever it is you're trying to do or you want to do. We have the internet. We have social media. It's free. People are becoming successful when their fucking form of social media was the damn homing pigeon. Most of us have no excuse. Some of us do, but most of us don't. So look, I understand that there are many folks out there in a nasty spot, and this may not be for you, but for those with a tiny bit of wiggle room, maybe one step away from a group I talked about, you may want to pay attention here. You may want to do something amazing. You may find out that you're amazing, more amazing than you thought you ever were. This rare moment we're in, this rare time we have to reflect, we may never ever get the time to think about it again. And God willing, we'll never have another virus like this that really panics everybody. But at the same time, we may never get this kind of free time again. So don't waste it if you're not sick. Before you do great things, you're going to have to grind your way up, and you're going to have to grind your way out of whatever spot you're at if you're below a level of making a difference. And for some, this won't be too bad, but for others, this will seem like an impossibility and like an eternity. But look, There are frontliners working days in a row right now in New York City to help sick people. And you can't look into bettering yourself and your family. You can't read a book. You can't try to be happy. You can't try to have a purpose. You can't give these people more of a reason to fight. These things, they relate. And in fact, when we get back in a few moments, we're going to get into purpose. We're going to get into happiness. And we're going to stitch all of this together so that you guys can really use it for good. I really want you to understand that there is happiness out there to find. And even now, when things seem dark for some folks, you need to turn your head in the right direction sometimes so you can see some light. It's always there shining in, and it's not impossible. It's not rocket science. But like everything else, it's just a pain in the ass, and you just got to do it. I'm James Lane. This is the American Reveille Podcast, and we will be right back.
The American Reveille Podcast with James Lane would like to take a moment to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to tune into the show. It's because of great fans like you that we strive to deliver the best quality content one can create as fast as one can fling the pen. The American Reveille Podcast with James Lane would also like to remind you that the American Reveille Podcast with James Lane is, in fact, sponsored by James Lane. James Lane also writes, directs, records, edits, and produces this podcast. On top of that, James Lane also handles the daunting task of running the social media management, and did I mention he also manages the webpage, email lists, creates and designs the artwork, and everything else you could think of. With that being said, a good little boy never misses his opportunity to sell himself, and though James would never ask you for your money, he would like to let you know that if you absolutely love this podcast, the writing, the art, its production, anything, please do us the personal favor of liking, sharing, tweeting, texting, and talking about this podcast. James Lane is a father, a husband, a U.S. Navy veteran, and is personally committed to the success of the American Reveille Podcast. For booking inquiries, potential sponsors, volunteers, internship inquiries, feedbacks, comments, or suggestions, please email James Lane directly at podcast@AmericanReveille.com, or please visit our website at www.AmericanReveille.com. Now, let's get back to the show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. This is the American Reveille Podcast, and I am James Lane. I have a theory that I'm going to lay out to you right away. So, are you listening? I'm giving you the entire formula for happiness here. So, if you want to skip a few really difficult life steps, grab a pen, open up your notes app, do whatever you got to do. I'll wait a second. Okay, so like mad scientists, let's put this concoction together and drink it without thinking. Let's drink some Kool-Aid. So sometimes in life, a little selfishness can lead to finding your purpose, and enough grinding away and loving one's purpose leads to selflessness. And if you're selfless enough, and you're not worried about bills and problems, the people you love are together and around you, close your eyes. Imagine freedom. Imagine doing good things for people and the planet while enjoying your purpose, enjoying your work, and making money doing what you love. I mean, what could sound better, right? The truth is that many people won't make it to great levels of fortune or fame. And that doesn't mean you can't do great things for your community. It doesn't mean you can't be successful, do well financially, and have a great life. It doesn't mean you can't be happy, and it doesn't mean you can't have a purpose. You just have to put in the effort to make this stuff work. You have to put in the effort to get this stuff rolling into action. It's like starting a rusty and seized like engine for some of us. And I know you can't start a seized engine, but Just try to use your imagination here. It would take a lot of lubricant. And if you've been listening to my previous podcast episodes, you know all about the lubricants that I'm talking about. I've had cinder blocks for a coffee table. I've bought $1,000 couch chair before, also with cash. And I've eaten moldy and expired food to survive. And I've also had that 2-pound delicious, oh my God, rare prime rib at 5 Crowns in Corona Del Mar, California. Holy shit. Talk about heavy breathing there. I've eaten dry ramen when there was no electricity to boil water. And I've also had the mint jelly on my bloody filet mignon at Fogo de Chao. And this stuff's super hard, guys, but it's not impossible. You go back, you go forward. You go back, you go forward. And the more days you put behind you actually busting your ass towards something, the less you'll find yourself in limbo or going backwards. Also, just in case you're wondering how I understand what you guys may be going through, if you're paying attention to all of the back and forth between hunger and gluttony, then you may have already figured out that I've found success and lost everything multiple times. I've made it up the ladder to a really good spot, and I have crashed and burned. But I want you to remember something that I live by and has truly served me well in my life. For every failure, for every time I lost everything and everyone turned their backs on me, I always knew that I got myself to the exact spot one time and I could do it again and again, at least to the same spot, quicker and easier than before, because I already know what it took to get me there. I knew how to get there. It gave me more time to move even more forward the next time. So sometimes you end up taking a few steps back to take a few steps forward. And after you end up in these situations a bunch of times, if you've made the right calls and busted your ass, gotten creative, used your God-given tools, you'll look back in a few years and think, holy crap, look how far I've come so quickly. I mean, our perception of time changes depending on what we're zooming in on, zooming out of at the moment. And look, it seemed like hell for me to get out of what I came from and then to lose everything and go back there a few times. When I look back, I have nothing but amazing memories of this hardship and hell that made me the man I am today. And remember, without these hard times, you'll never get the good stories to tell your kids and grandkids. So, I mean, I'm not rich, but I come from a life that was not easy. And right now, at this very point, my kids will never have the type of childhood that I had, nor will they ever go without the essentials like I did, like my mom did, like my wife did, like many of my friends did at certain points. So I'm happy. Money, tons of money would be nice, but my family needs are covered. Maybe not 16 emergencies in a row, but at least their needs. So this isn't something I had growing up, and I'm happy and proud and thankful, like many of you are, that at least I'm in a spot that I can give it to others. And many others out there are trying to step up into that position and beyond. So I'm telling you about this for a reason. And I'm telling you about it because I want you to set your goals on happiness and then work your fucking ass off. If you have something special, it will grow, it will work, and you will find even more success. But at least developing the skills we've been talking about and opening our eyes to the reality that we need to lift ourselves and each other up. I mean, guys, we can at least increase the chances that our families and our children will have better futures and safer communities with parents that know how to teach their kids about happiness and how to find it instead of wondering themselves and misguiding their own family. So be a little selfish and bust your ass. Find your purpose. Get successful in that purpose. Grind, evolve, do well. Then start giving back a little. Do some good things. Take some pride in knowing that you're not an in-the-way person, as some people call them. Scale up if you want to. But in this, you'll have to find happiness in the work itself, in the deeds themselves. It's an endless grind, and that's where the happiness lies, in the grind itself. So everyone who really makes it always seems to miss the struggle. We look at them like they're crazy. They have everything. Why aren't they happy? The struggle, the work, the grind, it gives us purpose. And when this purpose dissipates, when it goes away, when things get too easy, the happiness gets lost. So look at famous people that unfortunately took their life early. You can add loss of purpose possibly to the list of whys. So find it, cherish it, and hold on to it. Purpose is the reason why we exist. So guys, we're wrapping up this shawarma and we're going to take her to go. This was the 10th episode of the American Reveille Podcast with me, of course, James Lane. And I've wanted to do this for a while, and a way to give what I've learned to people, an outlet for discussion, a community of like-minded people. It's all I could ask for. And I'm so glad that I have the opportunity to build it. And I don't find people very often, but now I have a feeling I'll be seeing many more of us as I'm hearing stories of more and more people every day taking this time to find their true path and do great things. Everybody's capable of something, and everybody has their own unique combination of genetic mush. This combination of genetic goopity goop plus our own pursuit of knowledge and experience, it mixes together and gives us these unique capabilities beyond most of what any of us could ever imagine. And in the last 10 episodes, we've talked about a lot of these concepts. So many: discipline, vision, purpose, developing a path, the vines of strategy, the 6 F's, the 4 P's, so many different concepts, but they all play a role when combined with your own unique genetic mix. And of course, how bad you want it. My friends, you'll have no idea what you're capable of doing until you at least try to do something. Even if it's just testing yourself and stepping up to see if you can maybe get a small promotion at work, and maybe that extends all the way to someone wanting to become a helicopter pilot or even a famous writer. Even if it's as simple as losing 15 pounds over the next 2 months while we may be locked up still at home because of this virus. Just don't sit idle and waste the precious gift of time while others are paying the ultimate price. A lot of people will never, ever be able to do these things, unfortunately, and we should honor them by making a better America and an even better American. So until next time, folks, this is the American Reveille Podcast. I'm James Lane, and thank you so much for listening. I'd love it if you'd comment about the show and really let me know how I can make it better. So much love, folks, and don't be afraid to get your hands dirty and build some calluses. Stay firm, my friends. This is James Lane, and I'm clocking out.
Rack it up, I got a bit of the bank to make me a safe house. Shake it up, she got her hands on her knees and she bringing the cake out. Smoke it up, I got some gas, some packs, I'm up in the greenhouse. Ball it up, I'm with the gang, we taking shots off the rebound. Fucking my post to say now, I've been humble too long.